You finally meet someone who doesn't raise their voice, doesn't disappear for days, doesn't make you question your worth, and suddenly you're uncomfortable. You find yourself pulling away, nitpicking, losing interest, or convincing yourself that they're too nice or too boring. You tell yourself there's no spark. But deep down, it's not boredom you're feeling, it's fear. Because stability for someone who has lived in chaos doesn't feel safe. It feels wrong, it feels empty. This is the fear of the healthy partner, the quiet terror that comes when love, dose, and tea come with pain attached. This fear is rooted in what psychology calls trauma bonding. It's when your nervous system has learned to associate love with stress, unpredictability, and emotional highs and lows. In your past, maybe love meant walking on eggshells, earning affection, or waiting for moments of calm between storms. Your brain learned that chaos equals connection, that anxiety equals intensity, and that peace equals disinterest. When you meet someone who doesn't trigger those old patterns, your system doesn't register it as safety, it registers it as a void. Imagine you've lived your whole life with the volume of love set at 10, screaming, fighting, apologizing, reconciling. That noise becomes your normal. Then you meet someone who loves you quietly, who doesn't play games, who listens, who means what they say. Suddenly, the volume drops to 2. And even though that's what healthy love sounds like, your body panics. It thinks something's wrong. You start looking for something to fix, some flaw to prove that this calm is fake. You poke, you test, you pull away because your nervous system is searching for the chaos it's addicted to. This isn't about preferring drama. It's about your body mistaking regulation for danger. When your childhood or past relationships were unstable, your brain wired itself around anticipation. It learned to scan constantly for threats, to predict when the next explosion might come. That hypervigilance became your version of safety. So when someone removes the threat, your body feels lost. The absence of danger doesn't feel peaceful. It feels like emptiness. That's why so many people sabotage stable relationships. They mistake emotional calm for emotional deadness. The threat of the predictable is a biological confusion. Your brain and body are designed to keep you in what's familiar, not what's good. Familiarity equals survival. So even if chaos hurt you, at least you knew its rhythm. You knew how to respond to silence, to shouting, to withdrawal. You knew how to manage it. But stability, you don't have a script for that. You, Dan T, know how to exist in a relationship where you not constantly scanning for danger. That lack of stimulation feels unbearable. You start creating little fires just to feel alive again. You pick fights, make accusations, or withdraw emotionally, not because you want to hurt the other person, but because you want to feel something you recognize. This is why people raised on emotional inconsistency often say things like, I, Don T, know how to handle someone who actually cares. They mean it literally. Their nervous system doesn't know how to process calm affection. Love that doesn't require survival skills feels suspicious. The predictable rhythm of a healthy relationship feels like waiting for the other shoe to drop. When no explosion comes, the silence becomes the threat. Picture this. You're dating someone who texts back on time, shows up when they say they will, and speaks gently even when they're upset. You should feel safe, but you don't. Instead, your brain whispers, something's off. You might think, they're too perfect, or this can't last. What you're really saying is, my body doesn't recognize this. You've been conditioned to expect love to come with adrenaline, and without that rush, your mind interprets calm as distance. The irony is that the healthy partner, the one who gives stability, who doesn't disappear when things get hard, is often the one who triggers the deepest fear, because they are the test. They reveal the gap between what you say you want and what your nervous system believes love should feel like. You can tell yourself you want peace, but if your body equates peace with emptiness, you'll run from it. You'll call it not feeling the spark, when the truth is, the spark was never love, it was fear. To someone who grew up in chaos, love without intensity feels fake. The constant highs and lows of a toxic relationship create a chemical addiction. Every time the tension breaks after a fight, after a silent treatment, you get a dopamine rush from the reconciliation. That's not love. That's a stress-reward loop. It's the same mechanism that makes gambling addictive. Your brain starts craving the unpredictable reward of temporary closeness after conflict. So when a healthy partner gives you steady affection with no crash or recovery cycle, your brain doesn't release the same chemical high. It feels dull, like something's missing. That's why you might unconsciously test the healthy partner's love. You create small disruptions to see how they'll react, to confirm they'll leave, or to provoke the emotional intensity your body craves. Maybe you start fights over small things. Maybe you withdraw affection to see if they'll chase you. You might even fantasize about someone more exciting. These aren't conscious choices. They're the nervous system's way of seeking the familiar pattern of unpredictability. You're not trying to destroy peace, you're trying to find home, even if home was chaos. When a partner offers consistent safety, it forces you to face something terrifying, your own discomfort with calm. You can no longer blame the other person for instability. The chaos isn't external anymore. It's internal. The silence exposes what's been underneath all along. The unresolved anxiety, the unprocessed grief, the unmet need for love that doesn't hurt. A healthy partner becomes a mirror, reflecting back your nervous system's addiction to survival. This is why some people say, the right person came at the wrong time. What they often mean is that their body wasn't ready to experience safety without running. It's not about timing, it's about regulation. Until you teach your nervous system that peace isn't danger, you'll keep interpreting healthy love as a threat. You'll keep mistaking the predictable for the perilous. A healthy relationship feels uncomfortable at first because it removes the need for performance. There's no chasing, no earning, no emotional roller coaster to keep you alert. You're just ... seen. That stillness feels unbearable for someone who's only ever known love as chaos. But that discomfort is not a sign you should leave, it's a sign you're healing. It's your nervous system rewiring itself to recognize calm as safe. To heal from this fear, you first have to stop romanticizing intensity. You have to recognize that love doesn't need to feel like survival to be real, that safety can exist without boredom, that stability isn't the absence of passion, it's the presence of peace. The work isn't about finding a more exciting partner. It's about teaching your body to stop equating unpredictability with connection. The threat of the predictable isn't a threat at all at S, your mind detoxing from the addiction to chaos. Every time you stay in a healthy dynamic, even when it feels dull or scary, you're teaching your body that calm is not danger, that love can exist without adrenaline, that safety can coexist with excitement, but only after you stop confusing pain with passion. And when you finally stop running, you'll see that the healthy partner was never the problem. The problem was the part of you that mistook calm for emptiness. Because love, the real kind, isn't a high, it's a home. If this spoke to you, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe to The Fictionist, where we break down the emotional illusions that keep you from peace and help you see the truth beneath your patterns. When you enter a healthy relationship after years of chaos, something strange happens inside you. You don't just feel feel lost. The silence isn't soothing, it's disorienting. The arguments aren't explosive, they're conversations. The affection isn't conditional, it's consistent. And instead of relaxing into that safety, you feel something close to panic. That reaction isn't about the person you with it. S about the loss of something you depended on your entire life, your survival self. The survival self is the version of you that learned how to stay alive in emotional warfare. It's the part that learned to predict moods, read danger in body language, and keep peace at any cost. It's the part that became skilled at silence, performance, and emotional self-erasure. For years, that identity kept you safe. It gave you control in uncontrollable situations. When love was unpredictable, your survival self was your armor made you sharp, alert, and ready to protect yourself from abandonment or rejection. But when you meet someone healthy as someone who doesn't attack, withdraw, or manipulate, that armor becomes useless. You're not in danger anymore, but your body doesn't know that yet. So when your partner offers calm consistency, it doesn't feel like love. It feels like a threat to your identity. You've spent years existing in hypervigilance, waiting for signs of rejection or betrayal. You knew how to perform love under pressure, how to soothe, how to fix, how to chase, how to disappear when needed. But this new kind of love doesn't require any of that. You're not needed as a rescuer, not rewarded for overfunctioning, not punished for resting. That stability forces a terrifying question. Who am I if I'm not surviving? This is the psychological core of resistance in a healthy relationship. The mind equates safety with loss of identity, purpose, and control. You've spent so long being the caretaker, the peacemaker, the one who anticipates every emotional shift, that being in a relationship without those demands feels like free fall. You're no longer performing to earn affection. You're simply being loved. And that stillness exposes something you've never had to face, the raw, unguarded self beneath all the defenses. To understand this fear, imagine someone who's lived their whole life in a battlefield. They've learned to sleep lightly, to wake at every sound, to expect threat behind every corner. Then, one day, the war ends. They move into a peaceful home. The air is quiet, the danger is gone. But their body doesn't relax, stays alert, waiting for the next attack. The silence becomes unbearable because it amplifies the inner noise they've never been able to hear before. That's what happens in emotional healing. The healthy partner becomes that quiet room, and you, the lifelong soldier, can't yet believe the war is over. This is why stability can trigger panic. Without chaos, you no longer have something to fight against. You can't justify your constant tension. The nervous system, wired for survival, doesn't know how to live without a reason to defend itself, so it invents new ones. You overanalyze your partner's tone. You question their intentions. You look for signs of betrayal that don't exist. It's not because you trust, demit s, because you trust safety. Your survival self is trying to recreate the world it knows, one where vigilance equals protection and calm equals danger. Even the body rebels. You might feel restless when things are peaceful, or physically uncomfortable when someone expresses care. Your mind searches for flaws or starts imagining the relationship's end. It's not sabotage, it's the survival self trying to regain control, because as long as you're in danger, you know what to do. But in peace, you have no map. You can see this in small, everyday moments. When your partner says, "I'm not mad, I just need space," your survival self hears. They're leaving. When they say, "You didn't do anything wrong," you hear, "I'm lying to you." When they treat you with patience, you wonder what they want in return. Every kind gesture feels suspicious because your old relationships trained you to earn affection through performance. If you're not performing, your nervous system panics, it thinks you're losing value. That's why many people subconsciously sabotage healthy love. They start fights, withdraw affection, or create distance not because they want pain, but because pain feels familiar. It's something they can manage. Peace, on the other hand, requires surrender. It requires trust, and for someone who's survived emotional chaos, trust feels like walking into fire. The survival self resists healing because it knows how to handle danger, but it doesn't know how to handle calm. In chaos, it has a purpose. In peace, it feels obsolete. It begins to whisper doubts, like, "You're too much," or "They'll get bored," or "You don't deserve this." These are not facts. They re-echoes from the old world where love had to be earned through endurance. This identity loss is especially powerful because it's emotional, not intellectual. You might know you're safe, you might know your partner cares, but your body doesn't believe it yet. Healing requires teaching your nervous system that safety doesn't mean loss, that you can exist without fighting, without fixing, without earning, that love doesn't have to be a transaction. The transition from survival self to authentic self feels like death because, in many ways, it is. The survival self dies when you stop living through fear. It loses its function when you stop performing for affection. It can no longer protect you from abandonment once you realize that love can exist without control. But before that realization, the loss feels unbearable. You mourn the self that kept you safe, even though it kept you small. Many people mistake this stage for incompatibility. They say, "I just don't feel the same excitement," or "Something's missing." But what's missing isn't chemistry, it's chaos. And the withdrawal from chaos feels like emptiness. It's the same as detoxing from a drug. You're not losing love. You're losing adrenaline. You're losing the constant spike of cortisol that made you feel alive. The quiet is your nervous system recalibrating, not rejecting. A healthy partner doesn't require your survival self, they invite your real self. But that invitation feels like exposure. The survival self was strong because it was defended. The real self is soft, uncertain, open. It doesn't have a plan for rejection. It doesn't know how to negotiate safety. That's why love feels scarier than danger, because to receive it, you have to put down your weapons. This resistance often traps people in a cycle. They crave peace, but can't tolerate it. They chase chaos, but hate themselves for it. The mind says, "I want safety," but the body says, "I don't trust it." The only way out of that loop is through awareness by noticing when the survival self is taking over and choosing not to obey it. You remind yourself, I'm not in danger. I'm just unfamiliar with calm. When you learn to sit in safety without fleeing from it, the survival self begins to dissolve. It doesn't vanish instantly, it quiets. You begin to breathe differently. You stop scanning for threat in your partner's eyes. You start recognizing that silence isn't rejection, that predictability isn't control, and that love doesn't require exhaustion to be real. The healthy relationship forces this confrontation. It doesn't heal you, it reveals where healing is needed. It exposes the gap between what your mind wants and what your body fears. It shows you that stability, ISNT, the enemy at S, the space where your real self finally gets to live. If this resonates with you, take a second to like, comment, and subscribe to The Fictionist, where we explore the psychology behind love, fear, and identity, and why peace often feels like the hardest thing to stay in.